Hello everyone, hope you all are doing good. In this video, I would like to share my thoughts as to why I picked up Leica Q2 and also provide you with my first impressions from using this camera for a couple of months. I would also like to talk about the things that I really enjoy on this camera. This is not going to be a detailed review, and if you want me to talk about certain topics in a detailed review, do let me know in the comment section below. So if this is your first time stopping by my channel, my name is Ansur and I share my thoughts about street photography and also about some gear that I use. So if that is something that interests you, kindly do consider subscribing to my channel as it really helps. So now let's move to the main part of the video. So why did I pick up the Leica Q2? I've always been looking to get a Leica for a very long time now. But whenever you talk or think about street photography, you can never ignore Leica. So I started doing some research, and the image quality that they usually attribute to the Leica system is actually coming from their lenses. And to my surprise, maybe not a surprise for you guys, the price tag that Leica carries is astronomically high. As for everyone, the cost has been one of the biggest roadblocks for me to get a Leica. If you want to get a decent Leica body and lens, it's easily going to cost me north of 6K or 7K. Just a good Leica glass definitely costs about half the price of the Q2 itself. So if you equate the economics, the Leica Q series is the cheapest gateway into the Leica ecosystem. The next question that I would like to answer is why the Q2 over Q? The answer is pretty straightforward. The Q2 is a much newer camera compared to the Q. It's also weather sealed, houses a newer battery, and some of the quirks with the Leica Q seem to have been ironed out on the Q2. And the biggest change being the 47 megapixel sensor on the Q2 compared to the 24 on the Q. Also, there are some other improvements too, which I would like to address in the later part of the video. I would like to take a moment now to talk about the design of the Q2. The Leica Q2 has a robust and boxy design. There is a lot of weight, in a very positive way I mean, and a heft that speaks volumes of the build of this camera. The camera as is has some good ergonomics, but I think can be improved with a case. I did try the case from Leica. It did not make much of a difference in my comfort in holding the camera. The camera has some exquisite craftsmanship. I really like the attention to details that has gone into making this camera. The camera also has some neat little smart tricks on how to remove the battery from the camera. There's also just one SD card slot at the bottom of the camera. When you have these third-party cases, one of the biggest issues that I faced is getting these SD cards in and out, but I still went ahead and got a third-party one. Main reason being, I did try the Leica one, as I said. Apart from the price, it kind of actually seals off the bottom. So if you want to remove your SD card or swap out your batteries, you have to remove the case, which is kind of a cumbersome process, and I didn't want to go that route. There are very few but well thought out buttons on this camera body, overall kind of maintaining a very clean and minimal design language, and they just focus on the bare essentials or the things that are actually needed to make a photograph. If you take a step back and think about Leica's design philosophy, you can clearly see that even Leica Q or Q2 strictly follows their minimalistic clean design philosophy, and with not much focus on ergonomics. So if you look at their other Leica bodies, also look very similar. So I think they mainly focus on making a good looking camera. Now I would like to talk a little bit about the 28mm stabilized lens on the Q2. The Leica Q2 also has the same 28mm f1.7 Summilux lens as you can find on the Leica Q. So this lens is composed of 11 elements in 9 groups with 3 aspherical elements. The optical image stabilization kind of kicks in when you are at a much lower shutter speeds, and it's not always running, so it kind of saves battery life. The images that you get out of this camera body and lens combination is just nothing short of spectacular. They look just amazing straight out of camera. The images are razor sharp even at f1.7. From edge to edge, they are like super sharp. There is very less vignetting that I observed, and the chromatic aberration is kind of non-existent, I would say. And if you stop down the lens from f4, the sharpness just gets better and better and better. Personally, I feel with the Q2, it's very hard to make a bad image. It's really nice. I really like the raw files also. I feel the highlight recovery is not that great on the Q2 files, but overall I think they look pretty good. For the JPEGs, I would say they are not as nice straight out of the camera like the ones that I get with my Fuji cameras. I need to tweak some of the settings in camera in order to get a better JPEG looking file for my taste. And overall I'm super satisfied with the images that the Q2 produces. I cannot be happier. Next, I would also like to talk a little bit about the battery life on the Q2. So the Leica Q2 sports a newer battery system and it's rated for around 350 to 400 shots. I think it's the same battery that is found in the SL2 system, but I was able to easily squeeze around 700 to 800 shots. I just used the EVF only, and I think the battery life is still not bad considering how expensive the batteries are for the Q2. If you have an SL, I think it's the same battery, so that's good. I did pick up an additional battery for the Q2 just for some peace of mind, and I will report back in my detailed review as to how the battery life holds up after long-term use. So finally getting to the point as to why I picked up the Q2. I picked up the Q2 mainly for the image quality, and boy, it does deliver on that front very well. And I cannot be much happier with the images that I get out of the Leica Q2. I've used it for some portrait sessions. I also used it for some street photography, and I'm really happy with the images that I get out of the Q2. Also, the camera is very easy to use. I think there are not many buttons, so there's not much fiddling around with settings on this camera, and I really find the menu system to be very clean and minimal. So all the menu items and layout is placed perfectly, I think, and if you want to find something, you can get there pretty quickly. That's one of the biggest highlights, I think, of this menu system and the ease of use. For someone who's shot with the Fuji or the Ricoh or even the Sony, this camera kind of slows you down significantly, and this slowing you down is kind of works in your favor. It really makes you to slow down, work the scene, and in order to get the best out of the camera, you really need to slow down and think about it before pulling the trigger. One of the biggest reasons why I went for the Q2 over the Q is the ability to crop. Sometimes I like to crop my images, and when I'm cropping with this 47 megapixel images, I'm not losing much details, which I'm just enjoying over the period of time now. So I am able to make some better compositions in post. I also like the fantastic raw files, so you don't need to work much in order to get great colors out of the raw files. So these DNG files are just amazing. Also, I like the 28mm field of view, and the ability to crop allows you to look at the scene in a much different way. 28mm, you can get pretty close to people without being in their face, and the ability to crop also allows me to get much closer in post. Also, I just love the full frame look. One of the nice things that you find on this 28mm lens is the ability to get into macro mode by just by turning the barrel of the lens, and also you can get into manual focus mode by just turning the lens element in a clockwise direction. The peaking features works beautifully well. The camera is also dust and water resistant, so it's IP52 rated for dust and water resistance. I would also like to talk just a little bit about the 4K video that is coming out of this camera. I think this device is not built for video capture, but if you are in a crunch, you can try it. It looks good, but it's not that great. It's not that you will be disappointed with the video quality itself. You will be disappointed with the shooting experience for video with this camera. It's not nice at all. And with the lens element moving in and out while shooting with this contrast based autofocus system, it's not nice. If you are in manual focus mode, yes, it works beautifully well. So I would highly recommend anyone who's trying to shoot 4K video with this camera to try something in manual focus. It works much better. Another reason why I moved to the Q system is the presence of autofocus. I'm someone who's learned photography in this digital age, and I really like to have that sense of security that autofocus provides. The autofocus is good. It's not as fast as your Canons or Fujis or Sonys, but it works very well. I think the single point autofocus is very nice. There is a lot of improvement that needs to be done with the continuous autofocus system, and in my detailed review I hope to talk a little bit more about how this autofocus system works and do I like it or not, and I need to test it a little bit more for me to give you my conclusions on this autofocus system. So finally, my thoughts about getting this camera. I think the Q2 is an expensive and exquisitely made camera, and it delivers well beyond my expectations on the single most important thing, the image quality and the shooting experience. So for someone who's coming from Canon or Sony or Fujifilm, it's going to be a bit frustrating to begin with. So at the beginning, it's going to be a very frustrating experience shooting with this camera, but slowly you will understand that this camera is designed to shoot in a much different way, and if you embrace that, you're really going to enjoy the shooting experience with this camera. And as I told you guys before, that it's very hard to make a bad image with this camera, and so far I've enjoyed the shooting experience thoroughly, and I hope to report back with a detailed review soon on this channel. So If you did enjoy watching this video, then hit that like button and do consider subscribing to my channel. And until the next one, take care and ciao ciao.